Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. I know this isn't normally where I film my sit down talking bits, but I have a lot of energy today and I can't sit down, so I'm just gonna be walking around my room. So as you can see from the title, I grew mushrooms again. However, this time I did things a little differently. A few months ago, I was watching a video about this couple who was living in a tiny home and they were growing their own mushrooms in plastic storage bins. The last time that I grew mushrooms, I used humidity tents and they worked perfectly fine, but there were times when I found them to be annoying and they also did take up a lot of space. So I decided I wanted to try the plastic container method. Now, before we get into it, I do want to say that I did make some mistakes. So as you're watching this video, I kindly ask you to refrain from typing any comments explaining what I did wrong until the very end. But I did realize what I did wrong and I was able to solve the problem eventually. I'm by no means the perfect plant owner or gardener or mushroom grower, and I do think it is important to show the mistakes that I make just so that other people can learn from them. So without further ado, let's grow some more mushrooms. First, I'm marking where I want my holes to go on the lid. Then I'm using a small drill bit to drill some pilot holes, and then a larger drill bit to make the holes bigger. Because this is the largest drill bit I have, these few holes alone aren't going to be enough to have good airflow. So I'm marking more spots and drilling more holes until it looks something like this. So my mushrooms have finally arrived. This time around I ordered some yellow oyster mushrooms. I also wanted to get some pink ones, but unfortunately they were out of stock, so I'm going to try again in the spring. But let's get this bad boy open. I have my container here and ready to go. I also have my bottle of water, which has been sitting out for over 24 hours, so the chlorine should have dissipated from the water. I'm also planning on putting this little bowl inside of the box filled with water just to add some additional humidity. And of course, I need something to cut open the box as well as cut a slit in the mushroom growing kit. Compared to the other kits I got, this one doesn't seem to have as much mycelium on it, but nonetheless, that doesn't mean it's not going to grow or anything. It's just an observation. So I think I'm going to make my X on this side so that the mushrooms will fruit out this way. So what I'm going to do is cut a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter X in the bag, and then we should be good to go. This is totally optional because it doesn't need to be 10 centimeters exact, but I like to put my measuring tape on here just to kind of get an idea of how big I should be doing the X. If you end up cutting actually like into the wood block, don't be too concerned because this doesn't really affect the mycelium. I know the first time I was a little freaked out thinking, oh my god, I killed it, but mycelium is pretty dang strong, so it'll grow over top of this, no problem. So I'm now gonna place the block inside of the box. One thing I'm now wondering is if I should have also drilled holes in the side of the bucket. However, the video I watched of the people who grew them in these only had holes in the top, so I think I might be okay. One thing that I'm also going to do is when I put the lid back on, I'm not going to like fully, have it flush. I'll probably sit it off like this so that there is still kind of some gaps in the side for a bit more easy airflow. And now we mist. It's like a fresh rainfall in here. I'm also going to be putting some water into here. So this is what my little mushroom enclosure looks like. Airflow is super important throughout all stages of growing mushrooms because while you want to keep the moisture in, you don't want to keep so much in that it just starts growing mold, which is not the type of fungus we want. But I'm going to leave the lid fully closed for maybe 24 hours just so that the block gets the chance to absorb some of the moisture and humidity because it has been in transit for a little bit. Plus, the holes on the top are obviously still going to provide some air circulation, but probably after 24 hours is when I'll start cracking open the lid a bit more, just so that nothing funky happens and we ensure that we have some nice, happy, healthy mushrooms. I'm gonna go move this guy into a spot where it will still get light, but obviously not too much direct sunlight, although it is winter in Canada right now, so we really don't have to worry about that. And I'll check in with you guys later. So it's only been a few days and nothing major has happened, but I did want to give you guys a little bit of an update because initially I was a little worried about the lack of mycelium on the block, but as you can see, it's starting to spread like crazy. I think now that it actually has a bit of airflow, it's growing a lot more. So I think now that the mycelium is really starting to grow, I'm gonna have the lid propped off a little bit, so in addition to all the little holes, it's gonna get more airflow coming in through these corners here. But I do need to give this guy a mist for today, so I'll just go ahead and do that. And we will just put the lid back on with the corners kind of propped. Maybe I'll do a little more. And yeah, that's about it. So it's been 7 days since I first started my kit, and there is a lot happening. I think we actually have some mushrooms starting to grow. I don't know how well you can see that, but there are all these giant bumps forming on the block. I'll take the block out so we can get a better look at this. As you can see, there's this popcorn looking thing growing on the block. Now, I'm not sure if this is the mycelium going crazy or if these are in fact the pinheads of the mushrooms, because these definitely don't look like the pinheads that my mushrooms grew from in my last kit, but it definitely looks promising. Less than 24 hours later, we have this. Yesterday it looked like popcorn and now it's kind of looking like that spray foam insulation. This is so cool because the first time that I grew mushrooms, I was actually away for a couple of days and they grew like crazy, so I didn't get the chance to see them in different phases like this. So it's been really fun just watching them change so rapidly. Okay, what the heck is this? I seriously cannot believe how much this has changed overnight. There's so many mushrooms, oh my god. It's now starting to look like a head of cauliflower. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see how this is going to change tomorrow. Oh my gosh, you guys, look at them! There's so many! They're so beautiful! Gonna give them a little mist to keep them happy. Alright, here you go. Enjoy the humidity. Alright, so today is a little bit of a later update. As you can see, it's already starting to get dark outside, but I wanted to show you guys the progress on these little mushrooms. As you can see, there are a ton that have started to form, and I've noticed on a couple of them, the caps are kind of going this like brownish color, which kind of worries me because I'm not sure if they're drying out or if they're becoming moldy. They don't feel dry or anything, so I'm just gonna kind of let it play out and see what happens. I mean, I kind of had my hopes that literally all of this would turn into mushrooms, but I think I might just be getting this big flush down here and these guys just might not come to full fruition. It's been a couple of days since I last updated you guys, and unfortunately my mushrooms are starting to look like this. A lot of the mushrooms have actually begun to dry out. I actually thought they were starting to rot just because they were turning this darker color, but upon feeling the little caps, they are definitely drying out. And even these guys over here, which have obviously developed a bit further, are starting to look a little funky. So something's definitely going on, and I have a theory. Most mushrooms do prefer cooler temperatures, however, yellow oyster mushrooms prefer temperatures between 21 and 29 degrees Celsius. We typically keep our apartment at 22, 23 degrees, but I think the main issue is where I had this box placed. I had it placed here, usually where my Monstera is, because it gets a lot of bright indirect light. However, because our building is older, these windows are not super efficient, and they actually get really cold at night, like maybe 18, 19 degrees. So I'm wondering if maybe the cold shocked them in a way. So what I think I'm gonna do is keep this guy further away from the window, still in a spot where it's going to get a lot of bright indirect light, but obviously not so close to the window that it gets affected by the temperature every night. But on the bright side, there are new little clusters of the mushrooms forming, so even though these guys didn't quite work out, I'm holding out hopes for these. So what I think I'm going to do is just remove all of these dried mushrooms. I'm actually going to make a mushroom dish tonight, so I'll toss these little guys in there. Not that you'll be able to tell that they're in there because there's only like 4 good ones, but I think if I just kind of clean this up and then we can just let the rest of the mycelium, or rather the fruiting mushrooms, do their thing and hopefully produce a more successful flush. It's been a couple days and this is what they look like now. So far, so good. What do you think? Oh my. Okay, so here's when I realized what I did wrong. See how these guys have long stems and small caps? That's because there isn't enough airflow. So after falling into a brief depressive episode because of how dumb I am, I decided to add more holes. Like, a lot of more holes. I'm thinking that because this was the largest drill bit I had on hand, it still wasn't enough to get proper airflow. So with a million new holes added, let's see what happens. It's the next day, maybe just under 24 hours since I added the additional holes into the bin, and I don't know if it's just me trying to convince myself, but I think these already look so much better. I don't know what it is, the caps just look a lot more healthier, and I don't want to jinx it, but I think they might be doing pretty well. I'm so mad right now. Because look at these freaking mushrooms. Look at them. This is what they're supposed to look like. So I'm not actually mad because like they're amazing. They're doing really well. I'm gonna get a gorgeous flush. I'm just so annoyed that I didn't increase the airflow sooner because by now I could have had 3 massive flushes of mushrooms. But I'm a dumbass, so I'm gonna go die now. It's now time to finally harvest the mushrooms. Oyster mushrooms are at their prime for eating when the cap has expanded, but the outer edges are still slightly turned under, which you can see is the case here. If you don't plan to use your mushrooms right away, store them in a paper bag in your fridge for up to a week. We ended up having these mushrooms with dinner that night on a delicious flatbread. So that concludes my journey of growing mushrooms a second time. I'm planning to order some other varieties of mushrooms, so if you guys want me to make a video on growing those, feel free to let me know. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea watching videos about someone growing mushrooms, but I just find their whole growing process to be so fascinating. Like, it's just crazy to me how they can change so much in a few hours. Anyways, that's all, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Like and subscribe, I'll see you later. Bye!